Hello and welcome. There are those who call me Bardbreaker, and it's time for another Pokemon Solo Challenge run. Last week we played through Pokemon Leaf Green using only a single Psyduck, and that actually went surprisingly well overall. So let's try another one that I'm kind of feeling could go either way. Today we're going to ask and answer the question, can I beat Pokemon Gold using only a team of a single Larvitar? Larvitar is a Stage 1 rock-ground dual type that was introduced in Gen 2, and it's most well known for eventually evolving into Tyranitar at its final stage. Stat-wise, it's actually not much better than our Mareep from our Pokemon Crystal Challenge. It's only got 20 overall more points, and they're spread out pretty evenly. Our best stat is our physical attack, which will work to our advantage as I believe almost all of our learnable moves are physical, but it's still not the best. To put things into perspective, our 300 total stat line is equal to Bellsprout and Pikachu. And to put that into even more perspective, Pikachu is well known to be extremely overrated, and Bellsprout has more physical attack than we do. This could actually be a pretty interesting challenge run. Let's take a look at the moveset. I think it's actually one of the more limited we've had thus far, but you be the judge. We start with Bite, which is actually pretty decent enough at 60 power on its own, but where it really shines is that it carries a 30% chance to cause flinching. Though in Gen 2 it's been changed to Dark type from Normal type back in Gen 1, so now it's going to be resisted by not only Steel but also fighting in the Dark type itself. But it is going to hit Ghost and Psychic for double damage now, so that's a plus. And now it'll do neutral damage against Brock, so that'll actually be good too. Beyond Bite, we don't learn another damaging move until level 22 with Rock Slide, unless you count Sandstorm, which will only do 1/8 of a Pokemon's max HP per turn. Thrash has really good power, but it'll make us confused, and I really hate relying on luck-based mechanics like Confusion in Pokemon. They seem to never go your way when you need them to. Crunch could be interesting, but we probably won't use it because, like Bite, it's dark, but Bite causes flinching, and it's actually better than Crunch because of that. Earthquake will be an absolute must once we get it, because it'll almost certainly one-shot us past Jasmine and her Steel Gym with ease. We might even use Hyper Beam this run. That could be interesting. Beyond level-up moves, though, our TM moves don't really open up much either. Toxic could always be interesting, though we don't get that until Kanto. Headbutt will almost certainly be used again once we find the TM for it. And that's pretty much it. There's not really a lot here. We might use Hidden Power, depending on its type and our needs, but I feel like our final moveset is going to wind up being something like Bite, Headbutt, Earthquake, and then either Hyper Beam or Rock Slide. It doesn't look like great type coverage overall, but we actually should be able to get around any type resistance with those moves in some way, so we should have a decent shot at this. Just like always, I write the script as we go along, so at this point I actually haven't started playing yet, so feel free to take your guesses in the comments below as to whether or not I can beat it or not. I like to see what you all think of me, plus comments please the almighty Algorist, god of the YouTube algorithms. Favor may he bring. I certainly feel that we can do this challenge. I feel we'll have to be high level to do it though, and we'll be at some disadvantages along the way since I know we're going to have issues with our lack of type coverage and our double weakness to grass and water moves. That being said, none of the gym leaders or Elite Four members fully specialize in those types, so we'll have to deal with a smattering of them here or there. We won't have to face entire team fights of them. Lastly, our rules. As always, only Larvitar in battle. I'll need some other Pokemon for HMs, but they'll be left fainted whenever possible to avoid tainting our run. I also won't be using items in battle. Held items will be allowed, as will items outside of combat, but no items like potions or X attacks during combat. Lastly, no cheats, glitches, or exploits. Let's do it, folks. We use the Universal Pokemon Randomizer to replace Cyndaquil with Larvitar. That way our rival will wind up with Totodile. There's no real reason for this choice. We'll be 4 times weak to both grass and water moves, so I gave him Totodile this time, since when we played Crystal we gave him Chikorita. It adds a bit more variety, I guess. We nickname our Larvitar, Larry, because when I got to the nickname screen I hadn't thought of anything and I didn't want to sit here for too long, so that's what we landed on. We're tasked with going to Mr. Pokemon's house to see something so absolutely amazing they couldn't just show it over the video phones that they clearly have. We get punched out by some guy touching himself in the woods while looking through the laboratory window. I hope we don't see him again later. And we press on to Cherry Grove City. We walk in on 2 old men trying to upload terrible selfies to Facebook, and we're given an egg to return to Professor Elm. Not only do they have matter teleportation in this universe, why can't they just deposit this Pokemon in the computer and then Professor Elm could take it out on his end? I really don't understand the universe mechanics of these games. On our way back to New Barktown, we're accosted by the pervert from the bushes earlier, and he challenges us to a fight. For some reason, instead of punching us out again like he did before, he steps into our battlefield and it's Totodile versus Larvitar. He doesn't know any water moves yet, so we're in business and take him down in a couple bites. We're also asked by the police to name our rival, and you all guessed it, Tim's back, baby. On our way to Violet City, we make 2 pit stops for HM users. We catch a Hoot Hoot and nickname her Flap City the 5th, long may she fly, as well as a Bellsprout for Cut later and nicknaming her Snipticus the 5th, long may she cut, as we make our way to Violet City. I decide to try our hand at the Violet Flying Gym even though we're not particularly high level at this point. Faulkner's trainers are easy enough, but Faulkner is another story. We get probably the best possible result on his Pidgey as we land a critical bite and then get the flinch, which allows us to land another bite to end it. His Pidgeotto, on the other hand, is a challenge. It knows Mud Slap, which is a ground type move that will be super effective against us, and I honestly just don't understand this. Why is ground type super effective against rock? Like why? I honestly don't understand. What's even more annoying is that I'm part ground. How can Pokemon be weak to a type that they are? Now, I understand there are other Pokemon like that, Dragon is weak to Dragon and such like that, but it still doesn't make any sense to me. Regardless, this battle doesn't go well. The Mud Slaps do pretty solid damage and they reduce our accuracy every time they hit, so we actually miss like 4 to 5 bites in a row before landing one at the end. Even with our berry, we lose the fight. Let's grind a couple levels and try again. So there's really not anywhere to go yet except Sprout Tower, which we do clear in 3 attempts. We're 4 times weak to Vine Whip though, so it takes a few tries, but eventually we clear it out and try our hand at Faulkner again at level 13. We outspeed the Pidgey and land a flinching bite. We attack again with another bite to finish it. Out next is his Pidgeotto. It outspeeds us, but is only doing about 5 damage with Mud Slap. We actually get slapped 4 or so times during this entire battle from start to finish, but never actually miss any of our moves. And that right there, folks, is another perfect illustration of why I absolutely detest stat debuffing moves. Our first attempt at Bugsy's gym in Azalea Town doesn't go exceptionally well either. We set up a Sandstorm and take out the Metapod as you'd expect, but out next is Scyther. To my surprise, the ground-type Sandstorm hits him despite his flying type, but his Fury Cutter gets stronger each time it lands, hits us too many times to take us out. Let's try again and hope for some better flinch luck. Alright, so future me note here, Scyther is outspeeding us, so flinching's not going to matter here. Also, future me note, Sandstorm is actually rock type, so that's how it can hit flying types. A couple failed attempts later and we get this run. We take out the Metapod in 2 bites, and out next is the Scyther. We get a Sandstorm going for passive damage each turn as it misses a Fury Cutter. From this point on, it's us just trading bites and Fury Cutters as the Sandstorm whittles him down. We get down low, but our last bite brings him down to red health, and the Sandstorm finishes it up for us. Last out is Kakuna, but we flinch it with our first bite and finish it with our second. Our rival battle west of town is brutal. We can one-shot the Ghastly with Bite, but we need to set up a Sandstorm off it to help with the Croconaw. Unfortunately, Ghastly knows Lick, which usually paralyzes us, and also Hypnosis. So getting a run through the Ghastly without being put to sleep or paralyzed is quite rare. We also can't afford to be paralyzed going into the Croconaw as it's already faster than us and we need to be able to outspeed it for a flinch chance. The more I think about this, Bite isn't going to be useful a lot. We're going to be slower than a lot of the stuff we come across, and if we're slower, we can't get a flinch chance. We make several attempts at this fight, but it's just not happening yet. We need to grind a few levels on wild Pokemon, but unfortunately in Gen 2, as I mentioned in the Crystal run, there's just nothing good here to grind on. Everything is brutally underleveled and gives crumbs for experience. We spend about 45 minutes grinding on the hideously leveled Pokemon in Gen 2, this is going to be a recurring statement throughout the video, and we get to level 22 to learn Rock Slide. It's 15 points stronger than Bite and has the same 30% chance of flinching. We also spend this time catching an Onix for strength and Rock Smash later, nicknaming it Bicepticus V, long may he lift, and we finally go back and try our battle with Tim again. We do lose our first attempt, but our second attempt we get past the Ghastly with a Bite and it's on to Croconaw. We apparently speed tied as on the previous attempt it was moving first, but this time we land a Rock Slide to get the flinch. We get off another Rock Slide and end it. Last out is Zubat, but a couple of bites, yes I should have just gone for Rock Slide, finish it off and we're past it. That wasn't as bad as I thought, but grinding in this game is going to be brutal just like in Crystal. Compounding that problem is the fact that we're in the slow leveling experience group, which means it's going to be even harder to level up than most Pokemon. I didn't even think of that before now, but whatever, a challenge is a challenge, right? Let's move on. After rescuing the wayward Farfetch'd and receiving the HM for Cut, we pick up the TM for Headbutt from this guy peeing on the tree and make our way to Goldenrod City. And just like in Crystal, I once again have to question who the hell designed this town. Nothing about this layout makes sense. Our battle with Whitney in the normal gym takes about 30 seconds. We set up a Sandstorm on the Clefairy, but it misses Double Slap. We follow that up with a Rock Slide for the knockout. Next out is her legendary Milk Tank to a face full of Pocket Sand. After that, we land a crit Rock Slide to bring her down to low health as she lands a not very effective rollout before another face full of sand takes her out. Now that that's over, we can proceed on even further into the game. We defeat the Kimono Girls and get the HM from Surf from the weird old man who decides a normal place to hang out is a woman's dancing dojo and then decide to try our hand at the rival battle in Burnt Tower. Out first is his Haunter, and it outspeeds us to land a Curse as we take it down with Bite. Next out is his Crocodon, we land a Rock Slide with a Flinch and take it down with Headbutt. Out next is his Magnemite, which isn't great considering our moveset at present. Once we get Earthquake later, they won't be a problem. Fortunately though, he misses with Supersonic as we're able to take it down with a Rock Throw and a Headbutt. Last out is his Zubat, and we've got to land this hit here or we're sure to faint from Curse. Fortunately, his super effective Rock Throw lands and we win the fight. With the extra level we've gone up now, it's time to try Morty. We outspeed the Ghastly this time and get the one shot with a super effective Bite. Out next is his Gengar, and it outspeeds us but misses Hypnosis as we land a crit Bite for the one shot. Next out is Haunter, and it lands a couple of Nightshades as we take it down with 2 bites. Last out is another Haunter, and we nearly one-shot it with a Bite as it misses Hypnosis, and we finish it with another Bite and get the Fog badge. Now we can proceed in a couple of directions. We decide to go southwest down to Olivine City. We aren't ready for Jasmine's gym yet, and there's a few things we have to do before we can battle her anyway, so that's good. The first thing we do is catch a Chinchou in the harbor for all of our water needs, nickname it Aquades V, long may she swim, and now we have something for Surf, Waterfall, and Whirlpool out of the way. We fight our way to the top of this OSHA nightmare of a lighthouse and find Jasmine asking us to run an errand for her. It will never cease to amaze me just how many mundane quests you have to do in Pokemon games. We surf our way to Cianwood and collect the secret potion from the Weird Man and take it back to Jasmine atop the lighthouse. After the man's secret juice heals it, we're free to do one of 3 things. We aren't strong enough to deal with Jasmine's Steel Gym yet, or Chuck's Fighting Gym yet, so we go all the way back to Mahogany Town to deal with Team Rocket. Once we clear them out, it's on to Price and the Ice Gym. His Seal goes down to a Rock Slide and out comes Piloswine. It survives a Rock Slide but fortunately misses Blizzard and goes down to a second Rock Slide. Last out is his Dugong, but 1 Rock Slide takes it out. Now that we're a little bit higher level, we can finally try Chuck in the Fighting Gym again, but we have to be cautious. With our extra levels, we're finally high enough to outspeed the Fighting Gym Pokemon. I know this because I made a few failed attempts earlier when I came down here for the Secret Man Juice. We get to Chuck without too much issue. We nearly take out his Primeape with 1 hit. It just barely survives a Headbutt, but only sets up a Leer, so we take it down with another bite. Out next is Poliwrath, and it tanks a Headbutt really well and lands a Surf. We survive though, despite the 4 times weakness, and we try for a Rock Slide as it does little more than Headbutt, but not enough and we go down to another Surf. We can probably do this with some good flinch luck since we are outspeeding it. Let's try again. On our second attempt, we get a 1-hit knockout on the Primeape with Headbutt, and out comes Poliwrath. We land Rock Slide, and though we don't get the flinch, he doesn't use Surf and instead goes for Mind Reader. We land a Headbutt and do get a flinch this time, which sets us up for another Headbutt for the win. We're still not quite high enough level for Jasmine, but at level 50 we learn Earthquake, so we're close to being able to just breeze through there with ease. We spend an hour or so grinding off mostly Tentacruel off the coast of Cianwood and Olivine cities, and eventually we reach level 50. I go ahead and replace Bite with Earthquake. Looking ahead, I don't feel like Bite's going to be particularly useful as opposed to Earthquake. I know Will and his Psychic team are coming in the Elite Four, but we have Rock Slide for several of his teams, so we should be okay. I may regret this move, but we'll go with it. I kinda want Sandstorm later for the additional passive damage each turn. Again, I may regret this, but we can replace it with Hyper Beam if we need to. In any event, now that we have Earthquake, Jasmine is Breeze. We one-shot the Magnemite right out of the gate, and out comes her Steelix. We one-shot it with a critical Earthquake. No surprises here, we also get the final 1-hit knockout on her second Magnemite and get the win. Now that we've gotten 2 more gyms out of the way, we can go take on Claire after clearing out the Radio Tower. Clearing out the Radio Tower was uneventful, and it's time for us to go find the real director in the underground. We're stopped by Tim, but this fight goes really well. Golbat is out first, but it goes down to a single super effective Rock Slide. Out next is his Feraligatr, and it survives an Earthquake, but only lands Water Gun before going down to Headbutt. Haunter's out next, but a single Earthquake finishes it. This is Gen 2, so it's before abilities like Levitate. Sneasel is out next, and it's weak to Rock, so a Rock Slide takes care of it. Last out is Magnemite, but again, no Levitate, so a single Earthquake finishes it as well. After clearing out the Radio Tower, it's time for Claire. Claire and the Dragon Gym are actually pretty easy. We fight all the trainers to get as much experience as we can, and now we take on Claire herself. Now that we have Earthquake though, it's an easy sweep. We even get past the King's Run one-shot thanks to a crit. We get through Victory Road, and now it's time for another battle with Tim. Ice Dark Sneasel is out first, and outspeeds us to only land a Screech, but we take it out in a single Rock Slide. Out next is Feraligatr, and it barely survives an Earthquake as it lands a Water Gun, but we finish it with Headbutt. From there, we don't have any issues with the rest of his team. His Kadabra, Golbat, Haunter, and Magneton all go out with a single Earthquake, and it's time for an attempt at the Elite Four. I don't think we'll do it at this level, but we can give it a try. First attempt at Will goes decently right up until the end. We get to his final Xatu, we miss the Rock Slide that would have ended it. Let's try again. Second attempt, and we actually fare better. We one-shot the first Xatu with Rock Slide, next out is Exeggutor, and we land a crit headbutt, but take a Psychic before getting another headbutt to seal the deal. Next out is Jinx, and it lands a double slap but goes down to an Earthquake. Slowbro is out and survives an Earthquake while setting up a Curse, which raises its stats, as it survives another headbutt and lands a Psychic before going down to another headbutt. Last out is another Xatu, and it's faster, and it lands Psychic, which we barely survive, but we land a Rock Slide to end it. Koga has been promoted from his gym leader position and is now a member of the Elite Four, but he still favors poison types. His Ariados is out first, but goes down to an Earthquake. Forretress weathers an Earthquake and sets up useless spikes since we won't be switching as it goes down to another Earthquake. Next out is Venomoth, which goes down in 2 headbutts as it lands a Psychic for a bit of damage. Muck is out next, but goes down to a single super effective Earthquake. Last out is the really fast Crobat. It outspeeds us to set up Double Team as we miss a Rock Slide. This setup happens again before on the third turn it uses Toxic, but we land a Rock Slide to end it and move on to Bruno. Our first attempt at Bruno, and Hitmontop is out first as we land a big headbutt. He uses Dig, but we finish him underground with an Earthquake. Next out is Hitmonlee, which does survive a headbutt and does big damage with a high jump kick before going down to headbutt. Hitmonchan is out next and lands a priority Mach Punch before barely surviving headbutt. We get hit with another Mach Punch, but we finish it with 3 HP remaining. We try for Earthquake on the Machamp, but it's just barely not enough and we go down to a Cross Chop. Maybe if we have better luck with Hitmonlee missing, we might have more health here. Let's try again. Second attempt, and this time we go for Headbutt off the Hitmontop as it goes for Dig. This time we set up a Sandstorm and take the damage off Dig. Another Headbutt finishes it. Hitmonlee's out, and between the Sandstorm and Headbutt it goes down this time. Hitmonchan is out now, and it goes for 2 Mach Punches, but goes down with 2 Headbutts. Next out is Machamp, who survives an Earthquake but misses his Cross Chop. We go for Headbutt, but Bruno uses a Max Potion. Fortunately, that gives us a window for 2 attacks, and we follow that Headbutt up with an Earthquake to finish it. Onyx is out and easily goes down to 1 Earthquake. We elixir up and move on to the next rung of the ladder. We start off with Karen, and I decide to use Earthquakes galore here. They aren't going to work against Lance at all, as his entire team is part flying. Umbreon survives an Earthquake, but misses a Sand Attack before going down to another Earthquake. Vileplume is out, and we have to be careful. We try for Headbutt, and it does a respectable amount of damage before we get hit with a 75% accurate Stun Spore. Next turn, Vileplume goes first, and it lands a beast of a Petal Dance, and of course now we're fully paralyzed. Our second attempt, and we hit an Earthquake on the Umbreon as it lands Sand Attack. We go for another Earthquake, but finish it. Next up is Vileplume, and we flinch it with a Headbutt, but of course our second one misses from the Sand Attack. Fortunately, Vileplume just seems intent to use Moonlight as we eventually take it out, but not before being paralyzed with a Stun Spore. Houndoom is out next and goes down to a single Earthquake. Next up is Gengar, and it lands a Curse as we miss Earthquake. It lands Lick, and we take a big chunk of damage from Curse, but we hit our Earthquake for the knockout. Last out is Murkrow, and a single Rock Slide finishes it before we lose to the Curse. On to Lance. Now it's time for Champion Lance, and his Gyarados is out first, but goes down to a single Rock Slide. Dragonite is out next, and it barely survives a Rock Slide before we finish it with Headbutt, but not before getting chunked a bunch by Blizzard. Aerodactyl is out, and it's also super fast and lands a crit Hyper Beam, but we survive and take it out with a Rock Slide. Next out is Dragonite as it gets off an Outrage to finish us. We should be able to do this though, we just need a bit more luck here. So after about 6 or 7 more attempts we get this run. Gyarados is always first and it goes down to Rock Slide. His Dragonite that's out second knows Blizzard, but this time we roll high on our damage and a single Rock Slide takes it out. For those who don't know, in Pokemon attacks don't do the same damage every time they're used. They use an RNG to decide what damage will be applied from a select range for that particular attack. This time we pulled a higher number from that range and we took it out without getting hit. His third Pokemon changes from run to run, and this time he goes for Aerodactyl. I think this was actually the first time he came out third in any of my attempts. He doesn't really know anything that's going to hurt us because of our rock typing, but he's faster, so he goes first as we miss a Rock Slide, which allows him to get another hit in before we can hit him with another Rock Slide to finish it. Dragonite is out next, and it sets up a Safeguard, but it barely survives Rock Slide. This prompts Lance to use a full restore as we land a crit Headbutt to bring it down below half. It outspeeds us to get off an Outrage, but we finish it with another Rock Slide. Charizard is out next and gets off a Flamethrower, but we resist it and land a super effective Rock Slide for the knockout. Last up is his third and final Dragonite. We land a Rock Slide to bring it to a Sliver, as it lands a crit Twister to bring us to a Sliver. Lance doesn't heal though, and we land a Headbutt to finish it and beat the game, and that's it folks. We've beaten Pokemon Gold with just a Larvitar. We get into the Hall of Fame and the credits roll, and that's it. Or at least it would be if Game Freak didn't cram an entire second game onto these cartridges. After the credits roll, we get to experience a somewhat condensed region and play through Kanto now. I'll spare you guys most of this unless something interesting happens, but I know you'll all be wondering if we can beat Blue and Red, so let's find out. I'm pretty confident we can take on Blue. We have super effective moves against 4 of his 6 Pokemon, and we're already higher level than his team. But I'm not confident about Red. We're going to need to level hard to take him on. So, after a bit more time than I expected, because Misty actually took a few attempts, it's finally time for Blue. His Pidgeot is out first, and it doesn't have much that's a threat to us, so we set up a Sandstorm as Pidgeot wastes Whirlwind. It follows up with Wing Attack as we knock it out with a Rock Slide. Next out is Exeggutor, and we hit a big Rock Slide and get a flinch. Blue uses a full restore, and we get a weak Headbutt for another flinch and get off another Rock Slide. All this, and it still survives with a Sliver as it charges Solar Beam, but another Headbutt finishes it. Alakazam sets up Reflect as we hit a big Earthquake. Alakazam then starts using Recover, and this goes back and forth for a few turns thanks to lower damage from Reflect before we finally get a crit to finish it. Rhydon is out next and survives our Earthquake thanks to Reflect as it lands one of its own against us. We survive it fairly well and finish it with another Earthquake. Gyarados is out next and goes down to a Rock Slide. Last out is Arcanine and it goes down with an Earthquake, and that's it, we've beaten Blue. That wasn't hard at all, we actually did that on our first attempt. Now it's on to Red. So this actually took me forever because I didn't realize that I had actually reset and not saved after beating Blaine, so I went running all over both regions trying to figure out why I couldn't advance to Mount Silver. Eventually we figured it out and went back and beat Blaine again, and we decided to go to Red after using our 11 rare candy, the only 11 you can get in the game, to get us to level 86. Pikachu outspeeds us and lands a Charm, which is going to chunk our attack by 2 whole stages. And with that, we don't even one-shot the Pikachu from there, it's just downhill. We do actually manage to get past his Espeon, which comes out next, but the Venusaur is just not going to let us past. If we didn't have our attack chunked with Charm, we might have better luck. I saved before using the rare candy though, so let's level up organically and use some rare candy later. I level up a bit and get to level 79 and then dump our rare candy on to bring us to level 90. And even at level 90, this still isn't happening, guys. Pikachu is faster than us and it uses Charm every time on its opening move. It's 100% accurate and it lowers our attack 2 stages. Unfortunately, all of our moves are physical, so this absolutely takes the wind out of our sails. As if that isn't bad enough, the Espeon that follows it will sometimes throw up Reflect, which even further tanks our physical attack. I'm honestly not sure we can get past Charm. Maybe if our attack is maxed out at level 100, we might have a chance. We didn't have this much trouble with Mareep because it was using special moves. We're all physical now. Once we level up 10 times to level 89, we use our 11 rare candy and max out to level 100 and try again. You may notice at this point I've replaced Sandstorm with Hidden Power. I was hoping we'd get a good type for it, but after testing it on a few wild encounters, we figure out that it's Rock type. Because of course it is. Now it's nice that we get a stab from it, but it's a special move and that's really not going to help us with our stats. Fire would have been really nice. I've yet to actually use a fire move in any of my challenges thus far. Even at level 100, our attack stat just isn't enough to get past Charm and a barrier, so we're kind of screwed. We just can't do more damage, and we're just not able to get past here. And can't do more damage, then that's the end, right? Or is it? So we take a look in the TM bag and decide to try and take Detect out for a spin. It'll basically negate whatever their first move is, and I'm wondering if we detect the first Charm, if the AI will use Quick Attack on its second turn instead. So let's try it. Pikachu is out first, and Detect is a priority move, so we set up, and it uses Charm, which fails. On its next turn, Pikachu uses Quick Attack. Yes! We then try for an Earthquake and we take it out. Espeon is out next, which also outspeeds us, and it hits a big Psychic, but we survive and we one-shot it with Earthquake. Now that we aren't fighting behind barriers and charms, we're actually doing respectable damage. Venusaur is out next, and it knows Giga Drain and Solar Beam, but in all my attempts, we've only ever seen it go for Solar Beam. We start with Earthquake for almost a one-shot as it begins to charge Solar Beam, but we go ahead and finish it with Headbutt. Blastoise is out next, and we land a crit Earthquake for the knockout. That could not have come at a better time. A Surf or a Hydro Pump surely would have ended it. Snorlax is out next and takes more damage than I was actually expecting from our Earthquake, and responds with a Body Slam. Thankfully, we're Rock type and we resist it as another Earthquake finishes the Snorlax. Last out is his Charizard, and we survive Flamethrower despite our special being reduced from Espeon, and we respond with a 4 times effective Rock Slide to end the Charizard. And there you go. We've successfully beaten Red, and now Pokemon Gold is truly over. Hooray! My Detect strategy worked. It actually took about 10 tries to happen though, because the Blastoise was always killing us with Surf once we got to him, but it worked. Next week, we maybe go back to Gen 1 and maybe do a fire type this time. I don't know, we'll see. Until then, like, comment, subscribe, and go catch 'em all.